The volunteer coordinator's voice cracked when she told Hannah that the children's literacy program would shut down in 3 weeks unless they found emergency funding. And Hannah felt her heart shatter watching 12 eager faces light up for story time, completely unaware this might be their last chapter together. Hannah Everett had been volunteering at the Riverside Community Center for 2 years, every Tuesday and Thursday evening, reading to kids from the neighborhood who needed a safe place to go after school. The program served children from low-income families, many of whom didn't have books at home or parents with the time to read to them. Hannah worked as an elementary school teacher during the day, but these evening sessions had become the highlight of her week. There was something magical about the way the children's eyes widened when she did different voices for characters, how they leaned forward during suspenseful moments, how they laughed at the funny parts. Today she had brought the wild robot, and the kids were completely entranced. 8-year-old Marcus sat cross-legged at her feet, chin resting in his hands. 10-year-old twins Jasmine and Jade flanked her on either side, following along in their own copies. The other children formed a semicircle around her in the reading nook, a cozy corner with bean bags, pillows, and a worn but colorful rug. Hannah poured everything she had into the reading, making robot sounds, giving the fox a sly voice, making the geese sound proper and concerned. The children giggled and gasped in all the right places. For these 45 minutes, nothing else mattered. Not the peeling paint on the community center walls, not the flickering fluorescent lights, not the fact that the heating barely worked in winter. She didn't notice the man standing in the doorway. Bennett Vance had taken a wrong turn. He'd been on his way to inspect a property his company was considering purchasing when his driver had gotten confused by the GPS. They'd pulled over to recalibrate, and Bennett had stepped out to stretch his legs and make a phone call. That's when he'd heard it, a woman's voice coming from the shabby building across the street, animated and joyful, followed by the sound of children's laughter. Curious, he'd walked over. The front door was propped open despite the chilly October evening. He'd followed the sound down a narrow hallway and found himself looking into a room that desperately needed renovation, filled with kids who looked like they didn't have much, all completely captivated by a young woman with light brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing jeans and a sweater that had seen better days. She was beautiful, but that wasn't what stopped him in his tracks. It was the expression on her face, pure joy and dedication, as she brought the story to life for these children. Bennett had spent the last 15 years building Vance Industries into one of the most successful manufacturing companies in the country, worth over $800 million. He'd met countless people who wanted something from him, who performed for him, who tried to impress him. This woman had no idea he existed, and she was giving these kids everything she had. Bennett found himself leaning against the doorframe, transfixed. She transitioned into a new chapter, and the children settled in, completely absorbed. He watched for 10 minutes, then 20, then 30. His phone buzzed repeatedly in his pocket. He ignored it. When the reading ended and the woman closed the book, the children erupted in protests. "Just one more chapter," Marcus pleaded. "Please, Miss Hannah." Hannah laughed, and the sound did something strange to Bennett's chest. "I promise we'll read more on Thursday," she said. "But right now, you all need to get home for dinner." The children reluctantly began gathering their things. Hannah helped them pack up, giving each one individual attention, a word of encouragement, a high five, a reminder to practice their reading at home. Bennett watched her crouch down to tie Marcus's shoe, saw her slip a granola bar to Jasmine when she thought no one was looking, noticed how she made sure each child had a safe way to get home. A tired-looking woman in her 50s entered the room. "Hannah, Can I talk to you for a minute?" Bennett stepped back into the hallway, but he could still hear them. "I got the final notice today," the woman said. "The grant funding dried up, and we just don't have the money to keep the program running. I'm so sorry, honey. I know how much this means to you and the kids." "There has to be something we can do, Carol," Hannah said, and Bennett could hear the desperation in her voice. "These kids need this program. For some of them, this is the only time anyone reads to them. It's not just about literacy. It's about showing them that someone cares, that there's magic in the world, that they matter." "I know," Carol said softly, "but we need $25,000 to keep the program running through the end of the school year, and we're a small center. We just don't have it. I've applied for every grant I can find, reached out to every contact. Unless something miraculous happens in the next 3 weeks, we have to shut it down." Bennett heard Hannah's sharp intake of breath, heard what might have been a stifled sob. Something in him shifted, clicked into place. He pulled out his phone and called his assistant. "Richard, I need you to find out everything about the Riverside Community Center and their children's literacy program. I want a full report in 2 hours." His driver appeared at the end of the hallway, looking concerned. "Mr. Vance, you have the dinner meeting with the investors in 40 minutes. Bennett glanced back at the room where Hannah was now alone, slumped in the reading chair with her head in her hands. "Cancel it," he said. "Reschedule for tomorrow." "Sir, these investors flew in from Tokyo specifically for this. I said cancel it." Bennett's voice was firm. Something more important came up. Back at his downtown penthouse office, Bennett read through Richard's report. The Riverside Community Center had been serving the community for 30 years, surviving on a patchwork of grants, donations, and volunteer work. The literacy program specifically had been running for 5 years and served approximately 40 children per week across 3 different reading groups. The operational costs were modest, mostly covering books, supplies, and a small stipend for Carol, the coordinator, who somehow kept the whole thing running. $25,000 was nothing to Bennett. He spent more than that on a decent suit. He could write a check right now, anonymously, and save the program. But something stopped him. That woman, Hannah, she'd moved something in him that he hadn't felt move in years, maybe ever. He wanted to see her again. He needed to understand what it was about her that had stopped him cold. The next Tuesday, Bennett showed up at the community center wearing jeans and a plain button-down shirt instead of his usual custom-tailored suit. He'd made a decision that felt slightly insane but absolutely necessary. He was going to volunteer. Carol was at the front desk, sorting through a box of donated books. She looked up when he entered, surprise evident on her face. The community center didn't get many visitors who looked like they could afford a decent meal, let alone the kind of understated wealth Bennett radiated even in casual clothes. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'd like to volunteer," Bennett said. "I heard about your literacy program." "I'm interested in helping out." Carol's eyes widened. "Oh, well, that's wonderful, but we actually might be shutting down soon due to funding issues, so I'm not sure it makes sense to bring on new volunteers right now." "I understand you need $25,000 to keep running through the school year," Bennett said. Carol's jaw dropped. "I'd like to make a donation. Let's call it an investment in the community." How did you?" Carol stammered. "Does that amount cover everything you need?" Bennett asked. "Yes, but that's incredibly generous, Mr. Bennett. Call me Bennett." He pulled out a checkbook, something he rarely carried anymore in the age of electronic transfers, but he'd brought it specifically for this. He wrote the check and handed it to her. $25,000 to keep the program running, but I have one condition." Carol looked at the check, her hands shaking. "Anything?" "I'd like to volunteer, help out where needed, maybe assist with the reading sessions. He paused. And I'd prefer if we kept the donation quiet for now. No announcements, no press. Just between us. Carol was staring at the check like it might vanish if she blinked. You want to volunteer? You just donated $25,000 and you want to volunteer. I believe in hands-on involvement, Bennett said, which was true enough. When is the next session? Thursday evening, 6 o'clock, Carol said automatically. But are you serious about this? You actually want to help with story time, completely serious. Hannah runs the Thursday session, Carol said, still looking dazed. She's our main volunteer, has been for 2 years. She's wonderful with the kids. I should probably tell her about the donation first. She's been so worried. Actually, Bennett interrupted smoothly. I'd appreciate it if we kept my involvement in the donation separate from the volunteering. I don't want special treatment or gratitude. I just want to help. Carol studied him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. You're an unusual man, Bennett. So I've been told. Thursday evening, Bennett arrived 15 minutes early, nerves making his palms sweat in a way they hadn't since his first major business presentation 15 years ago. This was ridiculous. He'd negotiated deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars without breaking a sweat, but the prospect of seeing Hannah again had him on edge. She arrived 10 minutes before 6, arms full of books, wearing another worn sweater and jeans that fit her perfectly. Her hair was down today, falling in soft waves past her shoulders. She stopped dead when she saw Bennett helping Carol set up chairs in the reading room. Oh, she said. Hello. Up close, she was even more beautiful. Warm brown eyes, a dusting of freckles across her nose, lips that looked soft and full. But more than that, there was something luminous about her, an inner light that drew him like a moth to flame. Hannah, this is Bennett, Carol said, practically glowing with suppressed excitement. He's going to be volunteering with us, and I have incredible news. We got a donation, a big one. The program is saved. Hannah's face transformed, joy breaking across it like sunrise. What? Oh my God, Carol, are you serious? $25,000, Carol said. Anonymous donor, but it came through, Hannah. We're saved. Hannah actually jumped, dropping her books and throwing her arms around Carol. When she pulled back, there were tears streaming down her face. The kids, she said. We can tell the kids they don't have to say goodbye. Carol, this is. I can't even. She was openly crying now, happy tears, and Bennett felt something tighten in his chest. This woman was crying over kids she volunteered to help, over a program that gave her nothing but the satisfaction of service. Who was she? Hannah wiped her eyes and laughed at herself. Sorry, I'm a mess. This has just been weighing on me so hard. Thank God for whoever donated that money. They have no idea what this means. Bennett caught Carol's eye. She gave him a small, knowing smile but said nothing. Anyway, Hannah said, trying to compose herself, welcome, Bennett. Have you worked with kids before? Not really, Bennett admitted. But I'm a fast learner. Well, the main thing is just enthusiasm and patience, Hannah said, bending to pick up her dropped books. Bennett immediately crouched to help her. Their hands brushed over a copy of Charlotte's Web, and he felt a jolt of electricity shoot up his arm. From the way her breath caught, she felt it too. Thanks, she said softly, meeting his eyes. This close he could see flecks of gold in her brown irises, could smell her shampoo, something vanilla and clean. No problem, he managed. The kids started arriving and the moment broke. Marcus ran in first, making a beeline for Hannah. Miss Hannah, I finished the book you gave me. Marcus, that's amazing, Hannah said, giving him her full attention. Did you like the ending? It was so cool, Marcus said. Can I tell you about my favorite part? Absolutely, but first say hi to Mr. Bennett. He's going to be helping us out. Marcus sized Bennett up with the brutal honesty of an 8-year-old. "Are you nice?" "I try to be," Bennett said. "Do you like robots?" "Sure do." "Okay," Marcus said, apparently satisfied. "You can stay." The other children filtered in, and Hannah introduced Bennett to each one. The twins, Jasmine and Jade, who were being raised by their grandmother. Sophia, who was shy but loved fantasy books. Dante, who struggled with reading but never gave up. Emma, who wanted to be a writer when she grew up. Terrell, who had just moved to the neighborhood and didn't have any friends yet. Hannah knew every single child's story, their struggles, their dreams, their favorite books. She remembered what they'd talked about last time, followed up on things they'd mentioned. She saw them, really saw them, and they bloomed under her attention. Bennett watched her work, fascinated. She had Marcus help demonstrate reading aloud for the newer kids. She paired Sophia and Emma together to share a book. She gently encouraged Dante through a tough paragraph, celebrating each word. She made sure Terrell felt included, drawing him into the group naturally. And then she started reading, and Bennett was transported right back to that first night, watching her bring a story to life. Today's book was The One and Only Ivan, and she read with such emotion, such passion, that Bennett found himself as absorbed as the children. When she got to a particularly moving part, her voice cracked with genuine feeling, and he saw Sophia wipe away a tear. This wasn't just volunteer work for Hannah. This was a calling, a purpose, something she poured her soul into. And the children responded to it, hungry for the love and attention she offered so freely. After the reading, while the kids were doing a brief writing activity Hannah had planned, she came to stand beside Bennett. "You're doing great for your first day," she said. "The kids like you." "They're wonderful," Bennett said honestly. "You're wonderful with them." She smiled, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. "This is my favorite part of the week. These kids, they deserve so much more than life has given them so far. If I can give them a love of reading, a sense that the world is bigger than their circumstances, that's everything." "How long have you been doing this?" 2 years. "I'm a teacher, 3rd grade, over at Lincoln Elementary, but teaching a full class is different than this. Here, I can really connect with each kid individually. It's special." "You're a teacher." That made sense, explained her natural way with the children, her skill at managing the group while still making each one feel seen. "Yeah, I know, super glamorous career," she said with a self-deprecating laugh. "I'm definitely not getting rich off it, but I can't imagine doing anything else." "I think it's incredibly important work," Bennett said, and he meant it. He'd built a company worth hundreds of millions, but what Hannah did, shaping young minds, giving disadvantaged kids hope and knowledge, that had a value that couldn't be measured in dollars. "That's nice of you to say," Hannah said. "So what do you do, Bennett, for work?" This was the moment he'd been dreading. "I'm in manufacturing," he said, which was true if absurdly understated. "Management side." "Cool," Hannah said, not pressing for details, not particularly interested in his work life. It was refreshing and terrifying. Every woman he'd dated in the past decade had been very interested in his work, which was to say, in his money and status. Hannah clearly couldn't care less. Over the next 4 weeks, Bennett became a regular fixture at Thursday evening story time. He'd rearranged his entire schedule around it, much to his assistant's bewilderment. Important meetings got moved. Dinner obligations got declined. Nothing interfered with 6 o'clock on Thursday. He and Hannah fell into an easy rhythm. She led the reading. He helped with activities. They tag-teamed managing the kids. He discovered he was actually pretty good with children when he relaxed and stopped overthinking it. Marcus had decided Bennett was his new best friend and regaled him with elaborate stories about school and his 5 siblings. The twins taught him a complicated hand-clapping game. Dante asked him for help with his reading homework, and Bennett felt a swell of pride when the boy successfully sounded out a difficult word. But mostly, Bennett watched Hannah. He learned that she tucked her hair behind her left ear when she was concentrating, that she had a small scar on her chin from a childhood bike accident, that her laugh was infectious and genuine, that she always made sure the shyer kids got attention, that she sometimes brought snacks from her own limited budget when she knew kids might be hungry, that she stayed late to talk with parents who were struggling, offering gentle advice and encouragement. He learned that she lived in a modest apartment not far from the community center, that she drove a 15-year-old Honda that barely ran, that she bought most of her clothes secondhand to save money, that despite having very little herself, she gave constantly to others, that she was the kind of person who made the world better just by being in it, and he was falling for her, hard and fast and completely. The problem was, he had no idea how to navigate this. Every relationship he'd had since building his fortune had been complicated by his wealth. Women saw the penthouse, the cars, the private jet, the bank account, and he never knew if they wanted him or his money. He'd grown cynical, guarded, had nearly given up on finding something real. But Hannah didn't know who he really was. She thought he was just some guy who worked in manufacturing management, probably making a decent but not extraordinary living. She liked him, or seemed to, but she liked him for himself. The way she smiled when he arrived, the way she laughed at his jokes, the way her hand lingered on his arm when she touched him, it was all genuine, and he was terrified of ruining it by telling her the truth. "You're spending a lot of time at a community center," his brother Derek said when Bennett met him for lunch one Saturday. "Should I be worried about you? Are you having some kind of crisis?" "No crisis," Bennett said. "I'm volunteering." Derek nearly choked on his water. "You're what?" "Volunteering, with a children's literacy program. You, the guy who works 70 hours a week, who hasn't taken a real vacation in 5 years, who lives and breathes Vance Industries. You're volunteering to read to kids." "Yes." Derek studied him with the knowing look of a younger brother who'd spent his whole life reading Bennett's moods. "This is about a woman." Bennett didn't answer, which was answer enough. "Holy shit," Derek said. "You're into someone. Actually into someone. Who is she?" "Her name is Hannah. She's a teacher. She volunteers at the community center." "And she doesn't know who you are," Derek guessed. "That's why you're being weird about it. Bennett, you have to tell her eventually." "I know," Bennett said. "But right now she likes me for me, not for what I have or what I can give her." "Do you know how rare that is? How incredible?" "I get it," Derek said more gently. "But the longer you wait, the worse it's going to be when she finds out, and she will find out." "I'll tell her," Bennett said. "Soon. I just need to figure out the right way." But the weeks kept passing, and Bennett kept putting it off. He was too caught up in the strange, wonderful alternate life he was living on Thursday evenings. He'd become part of the community center family. Carol treated him like a beloved nephew. The kids adored him. And Hannah had become his favorite person in the world. They started arriving early to set up together, staying late to clean up and talk. He learned about her childhood in a small town upstate, her parents who'd encouraged her love of reading, her decision to become a teacher despite the low pay, because she wanted to make a difference. She learned about his childhood too, though he was careful with details, talking about his parents who'd worked hard to build something from nothing, his close relationship with Derek, his drive to succeed. "You're different than I expected," Hannah said one Thursday in late November as they were stacking chairs after the kids left. "Different how?" Bennett asked. "I don't know. When you first showed up, you seemed kind of intimidating, put together, like you had your whole life figured out." but you're actually pretty goofy with the kids, and you ask questions like you're genuinely curious about people, and you laugh at my terrible jokes." "Your jokes are not terrible," Bennett protested. "Bennett, yesterday I made a pun about books having spines and you pity laughed for like 10 seconds. That was genuine laughter." "It was definitely pity," she said, but she was smiling. "Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, I'm really glad you started volunteering. The kids love you. Carol loves you and I." She trailed off, a blush creeping up her neck. Bennett's heart was hammering. "And you," Hannah bit her lip, looking suddenly vulnerable. "I really like having you here, really like it. You've made Thursday nights even more special than they already were, and I didn't think that was possible." This was it. This was his moment. Bennett set down the chair he was holding and took a step toward her. "Hannah, I need to tell you something." Her eyes went wide. "Okay." "I like you," Bennett said. "A lot. More than like, actually. I know we've only known each other for a little over a month, but you're incredible. The way you are with these kids, the way you care about people, your passion and kindness and joy. I've never met anyone like you. And I'd really like to take you out to dinner. A real date, not just community center cleanup." Hannah's face had gone through several emotions during his speech, settling on radiant happiness. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'd love that. I was starting to think maybe I was imagining the connection between us, but I've been hoping you'd ask." Relief flooded through Bennett. "Really? Really," she said. "I like you too, Bennett, a lot. You're kind and genuine, and you show up not just physically but emotionally. You're present. That's rare." Bennett wanted to kiss her right then, but they were standing in a community center with Carol puttering around somewhere nearby and kids' artwork on the walls. So instead he just smiled like an idiot and said, "How about Saturday? I'll pick you up at 7. Perfect." Saturday arrived and Bennett was more nervous than he'd been in his entire adult life. He'd made reservations at Marcello's, an upscale Italian restaurant, but was now second-guessing himself. Was it too fancy? Would Hannah be uncomfortable? Would she wonder how he could afford it on a manufacturing manager's salary? Maybe he should have just suggested something casual. But he wanted to treat her, wanted to show her she deserved nice things, romance, effort. When he pulled up to her apartment building in his Audi, he realized he'd made another mistake. The car was nice but not flashy, but it was still expensive. He saw her eyebrows raise slightly when she came out and saw it. But then she smiled, and whatever worry he'd had melted away. She looked beautiful in a simple navy dress and cream cardigan, her hair curled, wearing minimal makeup that highlighted her natural beauty. "Hi," she said, sliding into the passenger seat. "Hi," Bennett said. "You look amazing." "Thanks. You clean up pretty nice yourself." Bennett had agonized over what to wear, finally settling on dark slacks and a gray button-down, no tie. Nice but not too formal. At Marcello's, the host greeted Bennett by name, which made Hannah's eyebrows rise again, but she didn't comment. They were shown to a quiet corner table, and a server immediately brought water and bread. "This place is beautiful," Hannah said, looking around at the warm lighting, the exposed brick, the wine bottles lining the walls. "I've heard about it but never been here." "It's supposed to be pretty expensive." Bennett's stomach tightened. "I wanted somewhere nice for our first date." "It's really nice," Hannah said. "Maybe too nice. I mean, I'm just a teacher, Bennett. I don't want you spending a ton of money on me." "You're not just anything," Bennett said firmly. "And I wanted to. Please let me treat you," Hannah smiled, relaxing. "Okay, thank you. This is really sweet." The dinner was perfect. They talked for hours, conversation flowing easily from topic to topic. Hannah told him about her students, the funny things they said, the challenges of teaching in an underfunded school, her dreams of maybe becoming a principal someday so she could make systematic changes. Bennett talked about work in vague terms, focusing more on his philosophy of business, his belief in treating employees well, his thoughts on leadership and responsibility. "You're really passionate about what you do," Hannah observed. "That's attractive." "You're passionate about teaching," Bennett countered. "That's attractive," she laughed. I walked into that one. Over dessert, tiramisu that they shared, Hannah asked the question Bennett had been dreading. "So what exactly do you do in manufacturing management?" "You've been kind of vague about the details." Bennett's mouth went dry. This was it. He needed to tell her. But looking across the table at her open, trusting face, he couldn't make himself do it. Not yet. Not when everything was going so perfectly. "I oversee operations for a mid-size company," he said, which was technically true if wildly misleading. "Make sure things run smoothly, handle personnel issues, that kind of thing. Honestly, it's not that interesting. I'd rather hear more about your day today." The deflection worked, and Hannah launched into a story about one of her students, and the moment passed. After dinner, Bennett drove Hannah home, parking outside her building. The neighborhood wasn't great, and he hated the thought of her living here, but he kept that to himself. "I had a really wonderful time," Hannah said. "Best first date I've ever been on, honestly." "Me too," Bennett said. "Can I see you again? Not just at the community center. I'd like that a lot." They sat there for a moment, the air between them charged with possibility. Then Hannah leaned across the console and kissed him softly. Bennett's hand came up to cup her face, and he kissed her back, gentle and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, Hannah was smiling. "Good night, Bennett." "Good night, Hannah." He watched her walk into her building, waiting until she was safely inside before driving away. His phone immediately rang. "Derek." "How did it go?" his brother asked. "Perfect," Bennett said. "It was perfect." "Did you tell her?" Bennett's silence answered the question. "Bennett," Derek said with a sigh. I know. I will, just not yet. Soon." But soon kept getting pushed back as Bennett and Hannah fell deeper into whatever was developing between them. They went on a second date, then a third. They texted throughout the day, good morning messages and random thoughts and photos of things that made them think of each other. They had long phone conversations at night, talking until one of them fell asleep. At the community center, they worked together seamlessly, and the kids picked up on the change between them. "Are you and Mr. Bennett boyfriend and girlfriend?" Jade asked one Thursday in early December, and Hannah had blushed and said, "We're figuring that out." Marcus, overhearing, had pumped his fist. "Yes, I knew it. I told Dante you guys liked each other and he didn't believe me. I win." The kids started treating them like a couple, and it felt natural and right. Bennett had never imagined himself in this kind of life, volunteering at a community center, surrounded by kids who needed help, falling for a teacher who gave everything to others. But it was the happiest he'd ever been. In mid-December, the community center was planning a holiday celebration for the kids, and Hannah was coordinating the whole thing. "We need decorations and food and small gifts for all the kids," she told Bennett. "Carol has a tiny budget, but I'm trying to make it special. These kids don't always get much for the holidays. What if we could get more funds?" Bennett asked carefully. "Unless you know another mysterious anonymous donor, we're working with about $200, Hannah said with a rueful smile. That evening, Bennett called Carol. "I'd like to make another donation. For the holiday party, whatever you need to make it really special for the kids." "Bennett, you've already done so much," Carol said. She'd figured out within the first week that he was the mysterious donor, though she'd kept her promise not to tell anyone. "I want to do this," Bennett said. "Let's say $5,000, get gifts for every kid, real gifts that they'll love, good food, decorations, everything." "You're going to make me cry," Carol said. "Again, what did we do to deserve you?" "You're giving kids a chance at a better life," Bennett said. "That deserves support." The holiday party was magical. The community center was transformed with decorations, Christmas lights strung everywhere, a tree in the corner covered with ornaments the kids had made. There was real food, pizza and salad and cookies, not just the cheap snacks they usually managed. And there were gifts, carefully chosen for each child based on their interests and needs. Books for everyone, but also art supplies and science kits and stuffed animals and board games. The kids were ecstatic. Marcus got a massive set of Lego robotics, and he actually cried. The twins received matching journals with beautiful leather covers. Sophia got a collection of fantasy novels she'd been wanting. Dante received an audiobook player loaded with stories at his reading level. Hannah kept looking around in wonder. "Carol, how did you afford all this?" "Donations," Carol said vaguely, catching Bennett's eye. "People who believe in what we're doing." Bennett stood back and watched Hannah with the kids, saw the joy on her face, and felt overwhelmed with emotion. This woman, this incredible woman, had changed his entire life in just a few months. She'd shown him what really mattered, what made life meaningful. He was in love with her. Completely, totally, irrevocably in love, and he still hadn't told her the truth. Later that evening, after the party ended and the kids had been picked up, Bennett helped Hannah and Carol clean up. When Carol left, they were alone in the decorated community center, Christmas lights twinkling around them. "This was the best night," Hannah said, standing close to Bennett. "Those kids, their faces, God, Bennett. Nights like this remind me why I do this, why it matters." "You matter," Bennett said, pulling her into his arms. "You matter so much, Hannah." She looked up at him, eyes shining. "You matter too. I don't know what I did to deserve you walking into this community center, but I'm so grateful." Bennett kissed her then, properly, deeply, pouring everything he felt into it. Hannah kissed him back, her arms winding around his neck, and for a long moment the world consisted of just the two of them, Christmas lights and possibility. When they broke apart, Hannah was breathless. "Come home with me," she asked softly. Bennett's heart stuttered. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," she said. "I'm falling for you, Bennett, really falling, and I don't want to wait any more." They went back to her apartment, a tiny one-bedroom with second-hand furniture and overflowing bookshelves. It was clean and cozy, decorated with obvious care despite the lack of funds. Bennett saw pictures of her with her family, her students' artwork on the fridge, plants in the windows. Hannah was nervous, he could tell, as she offered him tea and fussed with straightening pillows that didn't need straightening. Bennett caught her hand, pulling her close. "Hey," he said softly. "We don't have to do anything you're not ready for." "I am ready," Hannah said. I really like you and I don't want to mess this up." "You're not going to mess anything up," Bennett promised. "I'm falling for you too, Hannah, so hard." She kissed him then, and they ended up on her couch, then eventually in her bedroom, and Bennett made love to her with a tenderness and passion he'd never experienced before. This wasn't just physical, it was emotional, spiritual, a connection that shook him to his core. Afterward, lying tangled together in her bed, Hannah traced patterns on his chest. "Stay," she asked. "Wild horses couldn't drag me away," Bennett said, and she laughed and snuggled closer. It was perfect. Everything was perfect. Except for the lie of omission sitting like a rock in Bennett's stomach. He needed to tell her. Soon. Before this went any further. Before she found out some other way and hated him for deceiving her, but not tonight. Tonight, he just wanted to hold her and pretend that he was just a regular guy who'd fallen for an incredible woman, with no complications. The holidays came and went in a blur of happiness. Bennett spent Christmas with his family, and Hannah spent it with hers upstate, but they talked on the phone for hours and missed each other desperately. For New Year's Eve, Bennett got tickets to a nice dinner and show downtown, and Hannah dressed up and they danced and kissed at midnight, and Bennett thought about proposing right then and there. It felt so right. But he couldn't propose when he still hadn't told her the truth. January arrived, and the community center was back in full swing. The kids returned from winter break full of energy and stories. Hannah had a new crop of books she was excited about. Bennett had never been happier or more terrified. One Tuesday evening, he was at his office late when Derek stopped by. "We need to talk about the expansion," Derek said. Vance Industries was in the process of acquiring a smaller company, and there were details to iron out. "Can it wait?" Bennett asked. "I have to leave soon." It was Thursday. "Story time. Bennett, this is a $50 million deal," Derek said. "It can't always wait. You've been distracted for months. The board is starting to notice." "I'm managing fine," Bennett said. "Are you?" Derek challenged. "Because you're dividing your time between running a major company and playing pretend at a community center. And you still haven't told Hannah who you really are. This is going to blow up in your face." "I know," Bennett said tightly. "I'm handling it." When are you going to tell her?" "Soon." "That's what you've been saying for 3 months. I said I'll handle it," Bennett snapped, then immediately regretted it. Derek was just trying to help. "I'm sorry, you're right. I'll tell her this week, I promise." Derek's expression softened. "I know you care about her." "That's obvious. But she deserves the truth. And the longer you wait, the more it's going to hurt when she finds out." Bennett knew his brother was right. That weekend, he invited Hannah to his place for the first time. He'd been avoiding it, had always gone to her apartment instead, but it was time. Time to show her his life, time to come clean. Hannah seemed excited as they drove through downtown, but confused as Bennett pulled into the parking garage of one of the most expensive buildings in the city. "Do you know someone who lives here?" she asked. "Yeah," Bennett said. "Me." Hannah's face went blank with shock. "You live here?" "Top floor," Bennett said quietly. "Hannah, there are some things I need to tell you." They rode the elevator in silence, Hannah's expression unreadable. When Bennett opened the door to his penthouse, her jaw literally dropped. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Modern furniture that cost more than her car. Original artwork on the walls. A kitchen that looked like something from a magazine. "What the hell?" Hannah said, turning to face him. "Bennett, what is this? How can you afford this?" "You said you worked in manufacturing management." "I do," Bennett said. "I manage Vance Industries because I own it. I'm the CEO." The color drained from Hannah's face. "Vance Industries. The Vance Industries that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars." "Yes. You're that Bennett Vance." Her voice was rising. "The billionaire Bennett Vance." "Not quite a billionaire," Bennett said uselessly. "More like 800 million. Hannah backed away from him like he'd struck her. "You lied to me. For months you lied to me." "I didn't lie," Bennett protested. "I just didn't tell you everything." "That's the same thing," Hannah shouted. "I told you everything about myself. About my family, my struggles, my shitty salary, and my broken-down car and my tiny apartment. And the whole time you were living here, sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars, and you didn't think that was important to mention." "I wanted you to like me for me," Bennett said desperately. "Not for what I have. Every woman I've dated since I made money has wanted me for my wealth, for what I could give them. But you didn't care about any of that. You liked me, just me." "I liked the person you pretended to be," Hannah said, tears starting to stream down her face. "I don't even know who you really are." Was any of it real? The volunteering, the community center, us, all of it was real, Bennett said, moving toward her. "Hannah, everything I feel for you is real. I love you." She flinched. Don't say that when I don't even know if I can trust you." "How did you even find the community center? Did you just stumble in one day?" Bennett hesitated and Hannah's eyes narrowed. "Tell me the truth. All of it." So Bennett told her about taking a wrong turn, hearing her voice, watching her read to the kids. About being so captivated that he donated $25,000 just to have a reason to come back. About volunteering under false pretenses so he could get to know her. About falling in love with her, but being too afraid to tell her the truth. With each word, Hannah's expression grew more devastated. When he finished, she was shaking. "You bought your way into my life," she said. "You donated money so you could, pursue me, like I was some project." "No," Bennett said urgently. "Hannah, no. I donated the money because the program deserved to be saved, because those kids needed it. And yes, I wanted to get to know you, but it became so much more than that. You changed my life. You showed me what really matters. I'm not some manic pixie dream girl who exists to teach you life lessons," Hannah said bitterly. "I'm a real person with real feelings, and you manipulated me." "I never manipulated you," Bennett said. "I fell in love with you. Everything between us has been genuine." "Genuine would have been telling me the truth from the start," Hannah said. "Genuine would have been trusting me enough to be honest. Instead, you let me go on and on about my financial struggles, about how I couldn't afford things, while you sat there with more money than I'll make in 100 lifetimes. Do you know how humiliating this is?" "You have nothing to be humiliated about," Bennett said. "You're incredible. You give everything to others. You make the world better. I'm the one who should be embarrassed, not you." "You're right about that," Hannah said. "You should be embarrassed. You should be ashamed. I need to leave." "Hannah, please," Bennett begged. "Please don't go. Let's talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about," Hannah said, heading for the door. "You lied to me for months. You let me believe we were equals, that we understood each other, when the whole time you were living in a completely different world. I don't even know what else you've lied about." "I haven't lied about anything else," Bennett said. "Everything I told you about my feelings, about caring for you, about the kind of person I am, it's all true." "How can I believe that?" Hannah asked, and the devastation in her voice broke Bennett's heart. "How can I believe anything you say when you've been lying to me from the beginning?" She walked out, and Bennett stood frozen in his penthouse, the city lights glittering around him, feeling like his entire world had just collapsed. The next few weeks were the worst of Bennett's life. Hannah stopped coming to the community center on Thursdays. Carol told him she'd asked for some time off, needed a break. Bennett kept going, reading to the kids, but his heart wasn't in it. The children noticed. "Where's Miss Hannah?" Marcus asked every week. "She needed some time away," Bennett would say, "but she'll be back soon." He hoped it was true. He tried texting Hannah. She didn't respond. He tried calling. She didn't answer. He sent flowers to her apartment and her school, along with notes apologizing and begging for a chance to explain, to make things right. The flowers came back with a note. "Please stop." Bennett threw himself into work, trying to distract himself, but nothing helped. Derek watched him spiral with concern. "Have you considered that maybe you need to give her space?" his brother suggested. "Let her process everything." "What if she never talks to me again?" Bennett asked. "Then you deal with it," Derek said gently, "but pushing her isn't going to help." So Bennett backed off, even though every day without Hannah felt like an eternity. He kept volunteering at the community center because he'd made a commitment, and because he realized he genuinely cared about it now. It wasn't just an excuse to see Hannah anymore. The kids mattered to him. The work mattered to him. Carol pulled him aside one Thursday in late January. "Hannah told me what happened," she said. "That you're the anonymous donor, that you're Bennett Vance, the CEO." Bennett nodded, waiting for the lecture. "She's hurt," Carol said. "Really hurt. She feels betrayed and foolish." "I know," Bennett said miserably. "I never meant to hurt her. I just wanted a chance to be seen as myself, not as my bank account." "I understand that," Carol said, "but you could have told her earlier." Once you knew she liked you for you, you could have been honest. I know, I was a coward. Carol studied him for a long moment. You really love her, don't you? More than anything, Bennett said. She's the best person I've ever known. She makes me want to be better. Then you need to figure out how to show her that, Carol said. Words aren't going to cut it. Hannah believes in actions, in showing up, in being present. You need to prove to her that your feelings are real. But Bennett had no idea how to do that. He'd shown up for months, but it had all been under false pretenses. How could he prove his feelings were genuine when the foundation was built on deception? He was still wrestling with the question when, 3 weeks after their breakup, his assistant buzzed him. "Mr. Vance, there's a Hannah Everett here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment." Bennett's heart stopped. "Send her in. Immediately." Hannah walked into his office and Bennett barely recognized her. She looked tired, like she hadn't been sleeping. Her eyes were red-rimmed. But she held herself with dignity, her spine straight. "Hannah," Bennett said, standing, "thank you for coming. I've been hoping you'd talk to me." "I'm not here for a reunion," Hannah said. "I'm here because I have something to say, and then I want you to leave me alone." Bennett felt something crack inside his chest, but he nodded. "Okay, I'm listening." Hannah took a deep breath. "I've spent the past 3 weeks angry, furious actually, at you for lying, at myself for not seeing it, but mostly at the situation because it's not fair. It's not fair that you came into my life and made me fall for you, and then turned out to be someone completely different than who I thought you were." "I'm not different," Bennett said quietly. "I'm the same person who volunteered with you, who spent time with those kids, who fell in love with you. The money doesn't change who I am fundamentally." "Doesn't it?" Hannah challenged. "You live in a penthouse. You could buy anything you want. You exist in a completely different world than I do. We're not equals, Bennett. We never were, and you let me think we were." "Money doesn't determine worth," Bennett said. "You're worth 100 of me, Hannah. You give everything to others. You change lives every single day. I just make things." "But the money matters," Hannah insisted. "It creates a power imbalance. It means we come from different places, have different perspectives, different options in life. And you hid that from me." "You're right," Bennett said. "I should have told you earlier. I was wrong. I was scared and selfish, and I hurt you, and I'm so sorry, Hannah. I'm so incredibly sorry. If I could go back and do it differently, I would." Hannah's eyes were shining with tears. "I came here to tell you that I can't do this. I can't be with someone who would deceive me like that, no matter how good the reason seemed at the time. Trust is everything to me, and you broke it." Bennett felt like he was dying, but he forced himself to nod. "I understand, and I respect your decision. I just want you to know that what we had was real. You're the love of my life, Hannah. I'll never feel about anyone the way I feel about you." A tear slipped down Hannah's cheek. "That makes it worse, actually, because I feel the same way. I love you, Bennett, or I love the person I thought you were, and losing you, it's destroying me. But I can't be with someone I don't trust." She turned to leave, and Bennett knew he had one last chance. "Wait," he said. "Please, just one more thing." Hannah paused but didn't turn around. "I'm not going to stop volunteering at the community center," Bennett said. "I know you're taking a break, and I respect that, but I want you to know that I'm committed to it. Not because of you, though I hope you'll come back eventually, but because it matters. Those kids matter. The work matters. You taught me that, and I'm not going to walk away from it." Hannah did turn then, surprise on her face. "And I'm setting up a foundation," Bennett continued, "to fund programs like the one at Riverside. Literacy programs, after-school programs, anything that helps kids who need it. I'm putting $10 million into it to start. It's going to be called the Everett Foundation after you, because you inspired it. You showed me what my money could actually do, the real difference it could make. I'm not asking for credit or recognition. I'm not doing it to win you back, though I'd give anything for that. I'm doing it because it's right, and because you changed me, Hannah. You made me better." Hannah was crying openly now. "Bennett, I'm not done," he said gently. "You can say no to me, to us, and I'll respect that. I'll hurt, but I'll respect it. But please don't stop doing what you do. Those kids need you, Carol needs you. And I'll stay away from any session you're leading if that's what you want. But please don't let what I did take away something you love." "You really mean all that?" Hannah asked. "The foundation, the commitment, all of it." "Every word," Bennett said. "You can ask Carol. She'll confirm I've been showing up every Thursday, even when you weren't there. I'm in this, Hannah. Not for you, though, God, I wish it could be for you, but for the right reasons." Hannah wiped her eyes. "I need time," she said, "to think, to figure out if I can get past this." "Take all the time you need," Bennett said. "I'll be here. Volunteering, running the foundation, trying to be the man you believed I was." Hannah left without saying anything else, and Bennett sank into his desk chair, emotionally exhausted. But for the first time in weeks, he felt a tiny spark of hope. The Everett Foundation launched the next week. Bennett kept his name off of it as much as possible, letting the board of directors he'd assembled take the public credit. He did interviews where he had to, explaining his vision for supporting childhood literacy and education, but he always deflected praise, always emphasized the work of volunteers and teachers like Hannah. Hannah's name was on everything, though. The Hannah Everett Foundation for Children's Literacy. Bennett had asked her permission through Carol, and she'd said yes, though she still wasn't talking to him directly. The foundation's first grant was to Riverside Community Center, funding their literacy program for the next 5 years. But grants went out to dozens of other programs too, across the city, and then across the state. Bennett reviewed every application personally, looking for programs that showed the kind of heart and dedication he'd seen at Riverside. And every Thursday he showed up at the community center and read to kids. In mid-February, 6 weeks after their breakup, Hannah came back. Bennett saw her walk in and his heart nearly stopped. She looked better, more rested, and she smiled at Carol. Then she saw Bennett. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then Hannah nodded, a small acknowledgement, and went to set up her reading area. They didn't work together that night. Hannah led one group of kids, Bennett led another. But they were in the same building, doing the work they both loved, and it was something, after the session, as parents picked up kids, Hannah approached him. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Of course," Bennett said, his heart racing. They went to the small office Carol used, closing the door for privacy. Hannah sat down, and Bennett took the chair across from her, not too close, giving her space. "I've been thinking a lot," Hannah said. "About everything. About us, about what happened, about what you've been doing since." Bennett waited, barely breathing. "You hurt me," Hannah said. "Really badly, and I'm still processing that, but I've also been watching what you've been doing. The foundation, the grants, the way you've kept showing up here even when I wasn't around. Carol talks about you constantly, about how great you are with the kids, how committed you are." "I meant what I said," Bennett said. "This matters to me now. You showed me that." "I believe you," Hannah said, "and I've realized something. You were wrong to lie to me, but I understand why you did. I saw the articles about you online, the way women have pursued you for your money. I get why you were cautious, why you wanted someone to see you for yourself." "That doesn't excuse it," Bennett said. "I should have told you sooner. Once I knew you, once I knew us, I should have trusted you with the truth." "Yeah, you should have," Hannah agreed. "But I also understand that trust is hard, especially when you've been burned. And the truth is, Bennett, I miss you so much. These past weeks have been miserable. I kept picking up my phone to text you about something funny a kid said, or a book I wanted to read, or just to say hi. You became part of my life, and losing you has left this huge hole." Hope was blooming in Bennett's chest, almost painful in its intensity. "But I need to know something," Hannah continued. "If we do this, if we try again, I need complete honesty, always. Even when it's hard, even when you think it might push me away. Can you do that?" "Yes," Bennett said immediately. "Absolute honesty about everything. I swear to you, Hannah." "And I need us to figure out how to navigate the money thing," Hannah said. "Because it does matter. It creates complications. I don't want to feel like I'm being taken care of or like there's a power imbalance. We need to be partners, equals, even if our bank accounts look very different." "Agreed," Bennett said. "And Hannah, I need you to know I don't want to change you or your life unless you want it changed. You love teaching, you love this community center, you love the life you've built. I respect that. I don't want you to give up anything for me." "What if I want some things to change?" Hannah asked. "What if I want to spend time in your world sometimes, see that side of your life?" "Then I'd love to share it with you," Bennett said. "But on your terms, at your pace. This relationship is about us, Hannah. Not about my money or my company or any of that. Just you and me." Hannah smiled, and it was like the sun coming out. "I'd like to try again," she said. "Slow, taking it one day at a time, rebuilding trust, but I'd like to try." Bennett wanted to leap across the space between them and kiss her, but he restrained himself. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Hannah said. "Because here's the thing. I've dated a lot of guys who said they cared about the things I cared about, but when it came down to it, they didn't want to show up. They didn't want to spend their free time at a community center or hear about my students or deal with the reality of who I am and what I do. But you did. You showed up, Bennett. Even when I was gone, even when there was nothing in it for you, you kept showing up. That means something. That means everything." "I love you," Bennett said. "I know I said it at the worst possible time before, but I need you to know. I'm in love with you, Hannah. Completely." "I love you too," Hannah said, and finally, Bennett crossed the distance between them and pulled her into his arms. She came willingly, and when he kissed her, it felt like coming home. They took it slow, just like Hannah wanted. They went on dates, but balanced fancy restaurants with casual coffee shops and pizza places. Bennett came to Hannah's apartment and cooked dinner with her in her tiny kitchen. Hannah came to his penthouse and let herself be awed by the view, but she didn't act intimidated, and she didn't treat him any differently. She met Derek, who loved her immediately, telling Bennett later, "Don't screw this up again. She's the best thing that ever happened to you." Hannah introduced Bennett to her parents when they visited, and they were wary at first, protective of their daughter who'd been hurt. But Bennett won them over by being genuine and showing how much he cared for Hannah. At the community center, they went back to working together, and it was even better than before. They had a rhythm now, an understanding. The kids were thrilled to have Miss Hannah back, and even more thrilled that she and Mr. Bennett were together. "I knew it," Marcus crowed. "I called it." The Everett Foundation grew, funding more and more programs. Hannah got involved, helping review applications, using her experience as a teacher to identify programs that would make a real difference. She wouldn't take a salary, but she loved being part of it, seeing the impact they could make together. In April, Bennett took Hannah on a weekend trip upstate, to a beautiful inn near where she'd grown up. They went hiking, ate amazing food, and spent hours just talking and being together. On Sunday morning, Bennett led her to a quiet spot by a lake. "I have something to ask you," he said, taking her hands. Hannah's eyes went wide. "Bennett, Hannah Everett, you changed my life," Bennett said. "You showed me what really matters, what it means to live with purpose and passion and love. You make me better. You make me want to be better. And I want to spend the rest of my life with you, showing up, being present, building something beautiful together. Will you marry me?" He pulled out a ring, a simple, elegant diamond that he'd agonized over for weeks, wanting something that fit Hannah's style that wouldn't overwhelm her. Hannah was crying, but she was smiling. "Yes," she said. "Yes, Bennett, of course yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, and it was perfect. Just the two of them and the lake and the future stretching out ahead. They got married in September in a small ceremony at the community center, surrounded by the people who mattered most. The kids were there, dressed up and excited, serving as flower girls and ring bearers. Carol cried through the whole thing. Hannah's parents beamed. Derek served as best man and gave a speech about how he'd never seen his brother happier. Hannah wore a simple white dress that made her look like an angel, and when Bennett saw her walking down the makeshift aisle, he felt tears prick his eyes. This incredible woman had agreed to spend her life with him, despite everything. He'd never been more grateful for anything. In his vows, Bennett promised to always be honest, to show up, to be the partner Hannah deserved. He promised to support her work, to honor her passion, to build a life together that reflected both of their values. Hannah promised to trust him, to let him in, to share the load and let him help carry it. She promised to love him not despite his wealth but as part of who he was, to see all of him and accept all of him. Marcus, who'd been chosen to carry the rings, whispered loudly, "This is the best day ever," and everyone laughed. The reception was simple: pizza and salad and a cake from a local bakery, music and dancing and joy. Bennett danced with Hannah, with her mother, with Carol, even with the twins who stood on his feet and made him spin them around. He'd never had so much fun at any of the fancy galas and events he'd been forced to attend over the years. This was real. This was what mattered. For their honeymoon, Bennett and Hannah went to Europe for 2 weeks, something Hannah had always dreamed of but never thought she'd afford. They saw Paris and Rome and Barcelona, ate amazing food, saw incredible art, and spent late nights talking about their dreams for the future. "I want to expand the foundation," Hannah said one night in their Barcelona hotel room. "I want to fund programs all over the country, eventually internationally. There are so many kids who need help, Bennett. We could make such a difference." "Then that's what we'll do," Bennett said. "Your vision, my resources, our combined passion. We'll change the world, Hannah." She smiled and kissed him. "I love you. I love the life we're building." "I love you too," Bennett said. "You're everything, Hannah, everything." When they returned home, they moved into a new place together. Not Bennett's penthouse, but a beautiful brownstone in a nice, but not ostentatious neighborhood. It had space for both of them, an office for Hannah to do foundation work, a library filled with books, a kitchen where they could cook together. It felt like home in a way Bennett's penthouse never had. Hannah kept teaching, but she cut back to part-time so she could devote more energy to the foundation. Together, they built something incredible, funding hundreds of programs, reaching thousands of kids. They still volunteered at Riverside every week, reading to kids, staying connected to the work on the ground level. A year after their wedding, Hannah came home from a doctor's appointment with news. She was pregnant. Bennett lifted her up and spun her around, both of them laughing and crying. They were going to have a baby, a child who would grow up surrounded by books and love and parents who were committed to making the world better. Their daughter, Emma, was born on a snowy January evening, 7 pounds of perfect. Bennett held her in his arms and felt overwhelmed with love and responsibility. This tiny person, she deserved everything, and he and Hannah would make sure she got it. They had a second child 2 years later, a son they named Marcus, after the boy from the community center who'd become so special to them. The original Marcus, now 13, was thrilled and a little embarrassed to have a baby named after him. "That's so cool," he said, holding baby Marcus carefully. I'm going to be the best big brother ever, even if I'm not really his brother. You're part of our family, Hannah told him. All the kids at Riverside are. Life was full and chaotic and beautiful. Bennett ran Vance Industries, but he'd learned to delegate, to trust his team, to create space for what really mattered. Hannah worked on the foundation and taught part-time and raised their children. They still volunteered together, now bringing Emma and Marcus along, raising them to understand the importance of service and compassion. On Thursday evenings, Bennett would sit in the reading nook at Riverside Community Center, his daughter on one side and his son on the other, while Hannah read to a new generation of kids who needed someone to show them they mattered. He'd catch her eye and smile, and she'd smile back, and he'd think about that first night he'd heard her voice, when he'd walked into this building and his life had changed forever. He donated $1 million over the years to this place, but Hannah had given him something infinitely more valuable. She'd given him purpose, love, a real life. She'd shown him that wealth meant nothing if it wasn't used to make the world better, that success meant nothing if you had no one to share it with. "Daddy, you're not paying attention," Emma whispered, tugging on his sleeve. "Mama's doing the funny voice." Bennett refocused on his wife, watching her bring a story to life for these children just like she'd been doing when he first found her. She was older now, laugh lines around her eyes, her hair shorter and shot through with a few early grays. She was more beautiful than ever. After the session, loading kids and books into their car, Hannah leaned against Bennett. "Good night," she asked. "The best," Bennett said, kissing her forehead. "Every night with you is the best." "Sap," she teased, but she was smiling. "You love it." "I do," she agreed. "I love you." "I love you too," Bennett said. "Thank you for giving me this life, Hannah, for seeing me, for forgiving me, for building this with me." "Thank you for showing up," Hannah said. "For keeping showing up even when it was hard. That's what made all the difference." They drove home through the city lights, their children chattering in the back seat about the story and their friends and what they wanted for dinner. Bennett reached over and took Hannah's hand, and she laced her fingers through his. This was everything. This was more than he'd ever dreamed possible. All because he'd heard a woman reading to children and decided to find out who she was, to be part of what she was building. That decision had changed everything, had given him a life worth living, a love worth fighting for, a purpose beyond profit. He'd found her reading to kids, and in doing so, he'd found himself. He'd found home. He'd found everything that mattered. And every day for the rest of his life, Bennett would be grateful that he'd taken that wrong turn, walked through that door, and let Hannah Everett change his world. Years later, when Emma and Marcus were in high school and asking about how their parents met, Hannah and Bennett would tell them the story. About the community center, the donation, the deception and forgiveness, the love that grew from it all. "So Dad basically stalked you?" Emma would ask, eyebrows raised. "It was romantic," Hannah would protest, laughing. "It was ethically questionable," Bennett would admit. "But it led me to your mother, so I can't regret it." "The important thing," Hannah would say, pulling Bennett close, "is that we found each other. And we built something beautiful together. That's what matters." And it was. Through all the years, the challenges and triumphs, the growth of their family and their foundation, the lives they touched and the difference they made, what mattered was the love between them. A love that started in a shabby community center with a woman reading to children and a man wise enough to recognize something extraordinary when he heard it. They grew old together, Hannah and Bennett, their love deepening with every passing year. They saw their children graduate college, start careers, find loves of their own. They watched the Everett Foundation expand beyond anything they'd imagined, helping hundreds of thousands of children over the decades. They kept volunteering at Riverside long after they needed to, because it was where their story began, and they wanted to honor that. On their 25th wedding anniversary, Bennett took Hannah back to the community center. It had been renovated several times over the years, funded by the foundation, but the reading nook was still there, still filled with children every week. "Thank you," Bennett said, holding Hannah close in the empty room, "for everything. For this life, this love, this purpose. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." "You're the best thing that ever happened to me too," Hannah said. "My love, my partner, my person. I'd do it all again in a heartbeat." "Even the part where I lied to you for months?" Bennett asked with a wry smile. "Even that," Hannah said. "Because it taught us both something important about trust and honesty and forgiveness. We came out stronger." Bennett kissed her, soft and sweet, in the room where their story began. "I love you, Hannah Vance." "I love you too, Bennett Vance. Forever." And forever it was. A love story that started with books and children and a man who heard something special and had the courage to pursue it. A love story built on honesty, eventually achieved, on showing up, on choosing each other every day. A love story that changed lives, starting with their own, rippling outward to touch countless others. It wasn't a perfect story, but it was theirs, and it was real, and it was full of the kind of love that makes life worth living. The kind of love that starts with one person seeing another truly, completely, and choosing to build something beautiful together. The kind of love that lasts.